What's up, everybody, and roll tide. Welcome into the college football playoff ranking show, reaction show here on the Bama Tailgate Daily, the original Bama Tailgate Daily and Tailgate show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chad Anderson. Mick Gillispie is kind of in and out this week. He's got some work retreat he's taking care of and hanging out with some friends. And so he is kind of off and on this week. Not going to be joining us tonight. Mending himself a little bit after some of the events that took place. So speedy recovery, Mick. All right, college football ranking show. That's coming up. Roll Tide to you, Iceman. The Duke-Michigan State game just finished, and this is the one time per year that we have a situation where the ranking show, instead of being at 6 o'clock Central, ends up being a little bit later. They put it in between the two games where they have, I forgot the exact name of the classic, but the college basketball kind of beginning of the year, quote unquote showcase. Duke, Michigan State was the first game. I'm not even sure. I hadn't been following tonight. Is it Kansas, Kentucky? Maybe is the second game. Nonetheless, in between and coming up here in just a few moments, ESPN is going to announce and unveil the newest rankings, the newest edition of the college football playoff. So we'll see with the top four teams. I'm going to show you here in just a minute what I would have going into tonight. And then I'm going to also show you what I think the committee will do going into tonight. And then I can't share the screen like we do a lot of times with press conferences. We can't share the ESPN unveiling. They would slap us on the wrist or do maybe a little bit worse to us for that. So anyway, we will though give them to you as they are released. But first, let's get things kicked off with tonight's preview show. All right, welcome back in college football ranking show here on this Tuesday evening. I'm Chad Anderson. Mick Gillispie away for a few days this week, so kind of off and on with the channel, but I've got you covered tonight. And then tomorrow night, we will be live again with carrying Nick Saban's press conference, his Wednesday evening press conference after practice concludes, getting ready for Chattanooga. And that game coming up on Saturday morning. And of course, the Crimson Tide gets ready during Thanksgiving week for the big Iron Bowl that comes up on the 25th before their showdown with Georgia coming up December 2nd in Atlanta. So, all right, let's take a look at the playoff rankings. I'm going to just share my screen here. So forgive me. I'm, again, solo producer here this evening, but I'm going to share. Let me get my screen pulled up here, and we'll show you what it looks like currently. Here we go. All right. So we'll get this pulled up on the screen. All right. You can see here, we'll zoom in. Sorry for some of the ads there and whatnot, but this is from the College Football Playoff website. You take a look. You see you got Ohio State there at number 1. You got Georgia at number 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. So if it ended today, those would be your teams. Washington in at 5, Oregon 6, Texas, then Alabama, Ole Miss, who lost to Georgia, and then Penn State, who lost to Michigan. We had some interesting matchups this past Saturday. We had, looking at potential upsets, Miami almost took it to Florida State. It was a really close game at the half. I believe it was even tied. And then second half, Florida State got up by 2 scores. Miami did pull it to within one touchdown, that is, before Florida State was able to hold them off on a final drive. Miami did have the ball down by 7 there at the end of the game, but they weren't able to make it back in and get it tied. So Miami also questionable call there. They had a safety, what should have been a safety on defense, that didn't pan out. Even after replay, it didn't pan out. So kind of interesting. Always the conspiracy theorists and the speculation of, did the ACC protect their golden child for this year? Doesn't mean Miami would have even won the game, but it certainly would have been quite the momentum swing. Other matchups, you had Washington, who actually trailed Utah at the half up in Seattle before coming back and shutting them out in the second half and beating them. I think it was 35-28 was the final score there. Oregon, they kind of kept USC at an arm's length. I think a lot of people expected Oregon to blow out USC. Wasn't the case. They did win by 9, but it was never just the complete romp that maybe you would have anticipated. Texas got up by 20 on TCU on the road. And then after that, they just kind of slowed down, didn't really do anything. And the Longhorns ended up holding on. They had a third down pass. They had a third down pass on the final drive, hit a deep shot, and ended up winning the game 29-26. So Texas wins, but they do struggle a little bit on the road at TCU. And then Alabama handles business against Kentucky. Ole Miss and Penn State, both losers, which means they're going to likely fall out of the top 10. So ESPN show has just started, kind of talking about some of the things that are on deck, which is the Ohio State-Michigan game, Georgia and Alabama going to meet up, and then Florida State and Washington remaining unbeaten. So that's what it looks like going into tonight. Those are the rankings at the end of last week. This right here is what I believe is going to be, or what I would do rather. This is how I would have the teams ranked. So we'll get this set for you. Pull this up. I have Georgia taking over the top spot after their win against Ole Miss, a convincing win against Ole Miss. I have Ohio State at 2, Michigan 3, Washington in at 4, given their ranked victory or victory over a ranked opponent in Utah. And then they still have the win against Oregon. Florida State, their best win is LSU. I got them coming in at 5, but you shouldn't worry. Like if you're Washington and Florida State, you're interchangeable because 2 will play 3, and that's going to knock one of those teams out. So Washington and Florida State, you're still essentially a top 4 team in that case. I think Texas should be 6. I think Alabama should be 7. I still can't understand the love and the infatuation with Oregon. I just simply don't get it. I think they're a good team, but their resume, I don't have them ahead of Texas or Alabama at this point. And you could argue and say Alabama's playing as well, if not better, than Oregon, and the committee just loves the Ducks. Number 9, I have is Louisville, and number 10 will be Oregon State. So this is what I have coming in. This is what I think the committee will actually do. I think they're going to go Georgia 1. I think they'll go Ohio State, Michigan. I think they will flip Washington and Florida State. I see that happening tonight. Oregon at 6. I don't see them moving Oregon. I don't agree with it. But Bama's win over Kentucky, even though it was dominant, Kentucky's not a ranked team. So I just don't see that happening. That's just where I feel. Texas should stay ahead of Alabama winning the head-to-head. Bama may beat Texas if they rematched right now, but you got to give Texas credit for the victory in Tuscaloosa. I would have Louisville, or I think they'll have Louisville at 9 and Oregon State at 10. The rankings are coming out as we speak and as I'm reading here. And so we'll get these unveiled and we'll get a new screenshot pulled up. A little bit of a surprise here. Missouri has hurdled into the top 10. Missouri, after their convincing victory over Tennessee, 36-7 in Columbia, they have vaulted their way from the number 14 team in the country to the number 9 team in the country. They moved up 5 spots, and Louisville comes in at 10. But Missouri, that one is a shocker. Missouri comes in at number 9 right now. We did need Tennessee. You're spot on there, Stephen. Absolutely spot on. Alabama remains 8. I still don't understand the Oregon thing. I still don't understand Oregon. I'm with you there, Stephen. 100% Tennessee needed to win. I've said it a lot. I've said that Bama fans have to be the biggest Georgia fans in the country because you need them undefeated at number 1. You really need Georgia to beat Tennessee on Saturday. Again, these rankings on the right that are on the screen, these are what I thought the committee would do. That is not what they have done. I'm completely thrown off by Missouri. We'll see what happens with 1 through 8. 8 is Alabama. Texas is 7. That's going to put Oregon at 6, but they're going to break for a moment and let McElroy and Herb Street and Joey Galloway and Reese talk for a few moments here. What do you guys think on this? It does hurt. I get it, but it was painful. But I was pulling for Tennessee. Bama didn't play Missouri this year. So with Bama not playing Missouri, Missouri beating Tennessee only hurts Alabama. I get it that it's fun, and Tennessee absolutely got their ass kicked. But, it's probably the officials, if we're all being fair here. But I would say that Bama needed Tennessee to beat Missouri. That Florida loss, man, that is really haunting Tennessee. How bad is Josh Heupel on the road? Go back and look. Josh Heupel's obviously got the Tennessee program in a better spot than where they were under the Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and Jeremy Pruitt experiments. But, man, Tennessee has looked just awful on the road. Like, they got beat handily by a not good Florida team. They looked good in the first half against Alabama and then got smoked in the second half. They just got beat like a drum in Columbia the whole game. I know it was close for a little bit in the first half, and then Missouri just turned it on. All right. Here come the top 6. Oregon is in at 6. So Oregon comes in. So really the only questions here are, is Georgia going to flip to 1? Which again, what's on the screen here is what I think they will do. No, they keep Washington at 5. I'm really surprised by that. I'm not saying Florida State wouldn't beat Washington, to be honest with you. They probably would. I think Florida State is a more complete team. Washington has the better offense. Florida State has the better defense. But I don't get that. We'll see what they do with the top 4. Again, really, yeah, there's Florida State at 4. We figured that. I'm waiting to see what happens here on 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I would think Michigan's 3 no matter what. So it comes down to Ohio State and Georgia as far as who's 1 and 2. I don't see how you don't reward Georgia. I get it. They haven't played anybody, but now with Missouri ranked that high, Missouri a top 10 team, Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss came in at 11, maybe 12. With that being the case, Georgia's got wins over Missouri and Ole Miss now. So I don't see how, and that's 2 top 12 teams. Ohio State had Notre Dame as a victory and Penn State as a victory. And by the way, can we just admit Penn State sucks? Like, if you're a Penn State fan, are you not furious that you're basically stuck with James Franklin? I mean, stuck. It just overrated. Absolutely overrated. They're always going to be 3rd in the Big Ten East. And they're not going to get better with Oregon and Washington and USC joining the conference. Here we go. They did move Ohio State to 2. All right. So Georgia is number 1, deservedly so. And that's a win for Alabama. That's a win. So now, when it comes down to it, here's the only other thing that's left is if Michigan beats Ohio State, is there any chance there? So these rankings are wrong or these rankings are right. No, they're not. 4 and 5 are wrong too. So Florida State's 4, Washington's 5, Louisville is 10, Missouri is 9. So I'm going to pull those down. We'll get them back up here in a moment once they get them updated on the college football website. They haven't done so yet, but as soon as they do, we'll get it pulled back up. What do you guys think on this? I'll try to get the complete rankings so we can go over these. A little bit of a shakeup here and there. So if we look at it, let's think of Alabama's path. So Georgia plays Tennessee on the road this weekend. Tennessee, I got to go back and look and see. They were much, much lower when it came down to the bottom half of the rankings. So see if we can find these on ESPN site and actually take a look at these. So Tennessee falling is not going to help anything. That's AP poll, coaches poll. They ran through them quick. We'll get it as it scrolls through the screen. Taking a look at Alabama's path, though, you need Georgia to remain undefeated. That's that's the first thing. They're looking at it now. Strength of record, Georgia is 7, Ohio State 1. Strength of schedule, Georgia 78, Ohio State 39. Key wins, Georgia number 9, Missouri number 13, Ole Miss. Uh, Ohio State's key victories, number 19, Notre Dame, number 12, Penn State. Georgia's 2 wins there are both at home. I kind of go like Pat McAfee says. I get it. Each year is a different team. Tennessee fell to 18, by the way. They dropped, I think that's 5 spots to number 18. I get it that every year is different. Every year has a new set of teams. You can't necessarily do anything for this year based on last year. But there is a little part of me that says when you're the 2-time defending champion and you're undefeated, and when you're matched up in ranked opponent situations, you just blow the doors off of them. I have a hard time giving any justification to Ohio State being ahead of Georgia there. So Bama will definitely need Georgia to stay at number 1. We look at who they have to hurdle over. Ohio State, Michigan, they play each other. One of them's going to lose. That's a given. An 11-1 non-conference champion, an 11-1 non-division winner, even though Ohio State did it last year. There's more of a logjam this year. An 11-1 Big Ten East non-division winner cannot get in the playoff unless there's just absolute chaos this weekend or next weekend before the season wraps up. I believe Washington is going to lose to Oregon State on the road this weekend. In fact, Oregon State is favored in that game by 1.5. I think the Beavers win that game in Corvallis. It wouldn't even be an upset, according to Vegas. Oregon State is the number 11 team in the college football playoff. Florida State, you look at their final couple of games, they've got, I think, a nobody this week. They've got on the road at Florida, and then they also have the ACC championship where they're probably going to face Louisville if that's not already decided. So Louisville's defense is good enough to cause problems for Florida State. Like, Florida State's not good enough to really blow people out. Florida State's a good football team, but they're not a team that's just going to walk in like the Big Ten, for example. We all know Michigan or Ohio State is going to beat Iowa in Indianapolis or wherever that's taking place this year. We don't know. We can't say for sure that Florida State is going to beat Louisville. You can't say that 100%. That spread is going to be less than a touchdown. That one could go either way. I still think Florida has a crazy outside shot against Florida State. Florida State's the better team. It's just more in the swamp. It could save the Florida season. It could, put a little bright spot on Napier. It's just one of those games that rivalry, it gets hostile, it gets loud. Some things go Florida's way early on. It's not an ACC matchup. So, that whole conspiracy about protecting your conference and whatnot, just look out for Florida. They could give Florida State some trouble. Louisville could definitely give trouble. So if Washington and Oregon both play with one loss, you almost are pulling for Washington to beat Oregon again, because in that spot, Washington will fall below Alabama if they lose. Then you've got Alabama, who would have to beat Auburn and Georgia. Washington would end up beating Washington State and Oregon to finish the year. The two big victories there are Washington over Oregon and Bama over Georgia. Bama would stay ahead of Washington. See, the reason I'm pulling for Washington there is because I would want Washington to fall behind Bama and then beat Oregon. So I don't think the committee can justify Washington beating Oregon twice and getting in ahead of Alabama, who would have beaten Georgia. I don't see that happening. I deep down don't believe you could leave Alabama out if Bama beats Georgia. and Oregon beats Washington, and you got 12-1 Bama and 12-1 Oregon. With the last game played, the committee watching Bama beat Georgia just a mere, what, 15 hours before the playoff is announced. I don't really see that as a way of you leaving Alabama out. It would be nice if Texas would lose. Doesn't have to happen, but it would be very nice. I've seen some people, and I thought of this too. 2011, we all know what Iowa State did on a Friday night to help out, beating, what was it, Brandon Weeden and Justin Blackman and Mike Gundy, beating Oklahoma State on a Friday night up in Ames. Guess who goes to Ames this Saturday night? Texas Longhorns. Would be nice if the clones and Matt Campbell could get up for one big upset and not have to rely on Texas Tech or on the Big 12 championship, which could be Oklahoma. It could be Oklahoma State. It could be Kansas. Can't remember if Kansas State was the other game there or not. So some crazy scenarios. We'll see what has to happen. Let's go through some of the comments. What do you guys think? Chad, who cares if Georgia is undefeated and Bama beats them? If the committee still wants to do with our tenants, simply put, still wants nothing to yeah, I get you. FSU didn't make a move. See, Mike, weeks ago when they had 2 weeks in a row barely beating unranked teams, they didn't move. They have to keep them up there since the rest of the ACC is trash. It is pretty bad this year. Louisville's okay, but Louisville would get smoked by a lot of SEC teams. I do pray they're Thunder the Barbarian. I like that name. I do believe and pray for a Georgia, as you say, blowout of Tennessee. No, I want Georgia to absolutely beat the hell out of Rocky Top. I mean, I want them to take the corn out of the jar and stick it in other places on Saturday. Like, Georgia's got to destroy Tennessee. I want them to do what they did to Ole Miss. That's what I'm looking for from the Dogs this weekend. Let's see. Steven, Bama should be a touchdown favorite over every team except Georgia and Ohio State. Michigan too. Michigan's pretty good. Their defense is good. Yep. It's funny. There was a bet going on in a circle that I have. This bet that was taking place. It was, what will the line be when Alabama and Georgia play? And I said it would be less than 4. I picked 3. Georgia would be 3. It came out, it's anywhere from 1.5 to 4, or the crazy, sites, depending on which one you choose. That's what I've seen. And so that's what I went with, was 3 to 4. Everything I've seen right now, it's sitting on one of those numbers between Scores and Odds or FanDuel or DraftKings, things like that. So I think Iceman said earlier that one site had 1.5 points as the line. Michigan would not run it 34 times in a row, Steven, because Michigan would have more respect for Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, Jahad Campbell, Mr. Lawson, who would be back by that time, Otis. There would be a lot of respect. Michigan didn't respect Penn State, and we understand why. They could run it right at them. They did this to them last year. Michigan had, was it over 400 yards rushing last year against Penn State? That's nuts. 400 yards last year. And then they lined up and then they said, we're just going to run it right at you. And Penn State still couldn't stop it. They still couldn't stop it. I almost think that was Harbaugh signaling to the team before the game, make a statement this way. Make a statement and just line up and punch them straight in the face. That was impressive what Michigan did, even though I don't think Penn State is so annoying because they continue to, and they being the media, they continue to anoint Penn State as like this team, this big win. But when you look around, Penn State beats who they're supposed to beat, which is a bunch of unranked teams, and then they get smoked when they play the good teams. Think about it. If you're a Penn State fan, I know they just fired their offensive coordinator. If you're a Penn State fan, you had 2 big games this year, Michigan and Ohio State. You combined for 15 points and 1 touchdown in those games. You lost those games 44-15. It was never really close. even though the scores were low and you could say, oh, it's only one possession or two possessions or here and there, there was never any part of you that looked at that game and watched those games and said, oh, Penn State's got a shot here. Wasn't the case. It was never the case. You're lying to yourself if you thought there was a chance. I agree, Mike. Next 2 weeks are going to be great. Next 3 weeks are going to be great because when you get into championship weekend, there's nothing better. And I'm going to Atlanta. There is nothing better than going to Atlanta and you're watching these other games. And sometimes you're watching them going, oh my God, this is like a quarterfinal. I know that we don't have a quarterfinal yet, but this is kind of like a quarterfinal. This is fun. Watching the Big 12 last year, admit it. You were pulling for Kansas State to beat the hell out of TCU. They won, but we kind of all knew that Kansas State winning that game wasn't going to knock TCU out of the playoff and put Bama in because Bama had 2 losses. But that's what makes that weekend fun, is all the craziness that can come up and all the pressure that a lot of teams don't normally experience and then what they have to deal with. Penn State isn't a bad team. They just can't win. Okay. Yeah, fine. Whatever. You define you, buddy. Like Mike, you go with you, man. Franklin is 2-17 against the top 10. Yeah, they're just not a good team. Yeah, I'm with you, Bama Gold. This could be correct. This could be accurate. Tennessee may be out if Georgia just beats the hell out of them. I really don't think they will. Tennessee lost to Missouri. They were 13. They fell 5 spots to 18. I have a hard time believing that if number 1 beats you by 24 points in your own backyard, that you drop what would be 8 spots to 26 and out of the poll. I don't see that. And Bama needs Tennessee to stay ranked. And you really don't need the Vols to slip up against Vanderbilt. Not that I think they will at the end of the year. Yes, need Florida for sure, Iceman. I mentioned that earlier. I think the Gators have a shot. Maybe that's me wishful thinking, but anytime you get a rivalry game, you get it on the road, you get it at night. Okay. I could buy into Florida's hype a little bit. Let's see. There's nothing at all convincing about Texas when they can't even put away any lowly ranked or subpar teams. Yeah, I get it, James. Guys, I get it, but this is not going to matter. It's just not. They're going to go back and look, and they're going to say Bama lost to Texas by double digits in their home field. Texas was without Quinn Ewers for a couple of games. He comes back. They'll make the excuse he was playing hurt or not 100%, whether that's true or not. It isn't going to matter. You need Texas to go away. Rev up your sirens and your tornado sirens and your cyclones and all that and pull like hell Saturday night. Because Texas's final game of the year is at home against Texas Tech. Not really, much of a threat there, I wouldn't imagine. So then you're looking at, is there any team that can beat them in the Big 12 championship? I mean, Oklahoma can because they have. Is there anybody else they can be? I don't know. I don't think Kansas can. Too banged up. I don't think Oklahoma State can. Too hot and cold. I guess they could. I just don't think they would in that situation. I don't think they'd have a realistic shot. I would like to see Kansas State play them again. I think Kansas State can beat them, and could beat them for sure. So I would say Oklahoma or K-State is who we would want in that Big 12 title game. Let's see. FSU is the 2022 TCU. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah. So this is an interesting comment and one that I agree with here. All right. So Joshua, in the future, stop playing Power 5 programs and out of conference play. Makes no sense. I agree. Now, I disagree because I love trips like we're going to go on next year where Bama goes to Madison, Wisconsin. We're all going to jump around at the end of the third quarter. See, I'm excited about that. I would much rather play that game than I would play Virginia Tech in Atlanta. Okay. I would much rather go to Madison, Wisconsin and do a home and home. I would much rather play Florida State home and home like they've set up, West Virginia home and home, Arizona home and home. That's so much better and more fun because that's part of college football. The pageantry, the traditions, the campuses, going to those cities, etc. I don't want to go play in the Mercedes Dome all the time. I don't want to play in Jerry World all the time. Much rather play the home and home. So I would say, though, if you're Alabama, that is the argument. You say, look, we're playing better football. I get it. We lost to Texas, but we went out and see, this is my argument more for why Bama should be ahead of Oregon. Oregon played Portland State, Texas Tech, and Hawaii. Those 3 out of conference teams. So the committee is not rewarding Bama for anything. They have a better resume. They're playing just as good right now, if not better. And Oregon didn't play anyone out of their conference. No one. Alabama went out of their way to schedule Texas. And to me, Bama should be looking at it and going, hey, committee, you're supposed to reward us for these things. If we didn't have Texas on the schedule, which would make our strength of schedule, or does make our strength of schedule so much better, which means you should reward us because we have a better resume, which includes strength of schedule. Well, we should have just gone and played, whoever, Florida Atlantic or Florida International or Utah State, bring them back to Tuscaloosa. We should have just scheduled them. We'd be undefeated. And now we're number what? If Bama was undefeated right now, what would they be? 3, 2, or 4? Probably 4 ahead of Florida State and Washington. They got better resumes if they're undefeated. Probably 4. It'd go Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama in that scenario. So that's my biggest beef with Oregon too, is Bama went out of their way to schedule the out of conference. Oregon didn't. Texas Tech doesn't count. Texas Tech is bad. You can't make the argument of, well, we scheduled Oklahoma, but they happened to be bad the year we played them. We scheduled it 8 years in advance. Fair. Texas Tech was good 20 years ago, and that's it. It's not like they're some great big powerhouse program. It's kind of like when Bama played Duke 10 years ago. It's like, okay, you got a Power 5 team, but nobody really cares. Bama Georgia line, Penn State stagflation. Yeah, I'm trying to get to some of these comments here before we wrap things up. Appreciate you guys hopping on. Any other thoughts here? Rankings have come out. They haven't updated the freaking website. So let me see if I can get it so I can put everything up on the screen, make it look a little better. Here we go. Now it's better. Let's get back to sharing. Pull this up. Let's do it a different way. How about that? I don't like that one. Let's go here. All right. So let's get this run through it real quick together. One thing that's also kind of cool that we haven't really talked about is what the 12 team will look like next year. 12 team is going to be awesome. So if you look at this right now, this is what the 12 would be. So Georgia would be 1, Ohio State would be 2, Florida State would be 3, Washington would be 4. I'm going to screw this up, but bear with me. After that, it would be Ohio State 5, Oregon 6, Texas 7, Bama 8, Missouri 9, Louisville 10, Oregon State 11, and then where is good old Tulane? Good old Tulane would be 12. So your first round matchups, and I'm sorry I don't have a graphic here for you on this one, so you just got to bear with me. But your first round matchups on this, you would have, first round matchups would be Tulane against Ohio State. That would be in Columbus. It would be Oregon State taking on Oregon. That would be in Eugene. How crazy would that be? The old Civil War. I don't think they're allowed to call that anymore, but we're going to do it. The Civil War. Oregon State at Oregon. That would be fun. Texas would host Louisville, and Bama would host Missouri in the 12-team format. Then on the winners, the winner of Bama, Missouri would line up against Georgia, I believe is how it would work. The winner of Texas and Louisville would face off against Michigan. The winner of Oregon State would face off against Florida State. And the winner of, what did I say? Tulane and Ohio State, which would be in Columbus, would take on Washington in those scenarios. Let's get to a few other comments here real quick. Roll Tide to you, Kadarius. Thanks for joining us tonight. Oregon's best win is Utah. Bama would dog stomp Texas today. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't think they dog stomp them, but I think Alabama would win that game today. It's a completely different Alabama team than what it was before. Let's see. I get that. I don't disagree with you either, Kadarius. Good comment here. I agree with that. Need to lose to unlock the best version of ourselves. Sometimes losses make you better. I think that's definitely the case with this team. Although I think the South Florida game is what really made it better. That was a debacle. Let's see here. Gundy has done all right. Texas historically, he's 5-7, I think. Yeah, I think Texas, during that run, Texas wasn't very good. Texas had a lot of bad years. So honestly, shouldn't that record be better than 5-7? Bama gets punished for scheduling premier programs. 100% agree, Iceman. We need Florida to step up. Absolutely. Georgia, only team this season that might beat Bama. I agree, but I think I think Georgia's more scared of playing Bama than Bama is Georgia. I really think that. I think Georgia looks around and says, oh, damn, like this team's getting better. This team's getting better. They're always a problem. Kirby's 1-4 against Nick Saban. It's just always one of those games for Georgia. I think that's the one team they don't want any part of is Alabama. Maybe that's obvious, but that's still the case. What would SEC divisions look like? Let's see here. Just wondering which SEC divisions will Texas and Oklahoma be in. Love both of you. Appreciate you, James. It will be no divisions. They're just going top to bottom. They're going to keep some permanent rivals and then rotate the rest of the schedule, but no divisions. You're just going to take the top 2 teams, which a lot of conferences are going to. Just top 2 teams, because look at the Big Ten West. That's the one that's the biggest joke. The Big Ten West is just absolutely atrocious. I like the optimism. They're shiesty. Bama's not going to get in. Thanks a lot. Let's see. Right. Yeah. They're not even doing pods. It's just 1 through 16. Jeff from KC is obviously having some, I don't know if things are legal in the state of Missouri or Kansas, whichever one he's in, because, Kansas City, you could be either or. I don't know what's legal or not legal there, but I think Jeff's partaking this evening. Georgia's scared of Bama. Yeah, they won't admit it. No divisions, right? Georgia too strong. We are better than Oregon. So, Adam, I'm with you. Bama is better than Michigan, or I'm sorry, Washington. I think Bama would beat Michigan as well. I think Michigan's too one-dimensional. I think J.J. McCarthy would get lit up by Dallas Turner. I think we'd beat Oregon too. Oregon scares me the most out of those teams, mainly because here's the reason: Bo Nix. And you guys may laugh about that, but Bo Nix is the reason. And I say that because Bo Nix has already been in the situation against Alabama. He's not afraid of Alabama. He's probably licking his chops at the chance at Alabama. To be honest, I don't know how Oregon and Bama are going to end up playing each other, but that is a thing that I don't see Bo Nix like afraid of Alabama. So really, if I'm Bama, the one team out of those 3 that Adam just mentioned, I would say don't give me Oregon, because again, the Bo Nix factor. He can also run, throw, that RPO stuff. It drives Bama nuts a lot of times. Washington struggled against ASU. Oregon lost to Washington. All right, Adam, you're getting a little too transitive, man. Can't get into the transitive properties in college football. You know that. Come on. Can't do that. Missouri's not on the level of Bama. Agree. Bama would take care of Missouri. I think Bama, Missouri would be like Georgia, Missouri. I think Bama would win by 10 or so points. Oh, we got a KC barbecue shot here. I love it. I've been to Kansas City once. because I do a baseball stadium tour. Try to hit all the stadiums in my life. I've been to 28 now, and KC barbecue's damn good, man. One of them was Jack Stack, maybe, and then Q, I think Q something. That was another one. And there was one more, but they were good. They were legit. One of them served me an old fashioned. Man, that stuff was right. Only good thing that was before I quit drinking. Only good thing is Georgia's being, yes, you need Georgia to be number one. Jamie, I actually think Bo Nix left the SEC because of Brian Harsin. I don't. I think it was more Brian Harsin than anything. Yeah, the Pac-12 is easier, better, whatever you want to call it. You don't take the same licks and so forth. But I think he left more because of Harsin than anything. Harsin was awful. I mean, Bama fans should have figured out how to pay to keep him around. Oregon throws the ball east-west too much. Yeah, and Oregon does utilize speed, and Bama's good at stopping speed. Shannon, I didn't hear the show because we were on. I'll go back and watch if anybody knows what they said about Alabama, but I'll have to go back and watch that and see for myself. But if Bama wins out, it's hard to think they wouldn't get in. Obviously, you could have 3 undefeated teams plus Texas as a Big 12 champion, and that would be the worst case for Bama. But that seems like a lot based on how things have taken place over the last few years. So remember, though, this is the longest in the BCS era through today. This is the longest that we have seen 5 undefeated teams, BCS era to today. It's the latest in the calendar year that we've seen 5 undefeated teams. So already this is a unique year. I love it. Somebody screenshot Crank It Up here. Because Mechie and Williams. Yeah. All right. I love it. Somebody's got a screenshot. I'm gonna screenshot that one for Crank It Up. We're rolling that one back December 3rd. Let's see. Jack Stacks, that's what it was. Pac-12, no defense. I get it. Do you think Bama will land QB and transfer portal? I don't think they need to, right? You got Milroe. You got Julian Sand coming in from Carlsbad, California. You don't need a transfer. You need to keep them in. Drake May's sitting over there at North Carolina right now. You need to keep them in, not bring them in. Just got to keep them in. They're already here. No reason to worry about going out and finding the quarterback. We had the quarterback all along. A lot of Bama fans didn't think so. Tommy Reese and Tyler Buckner didn't think so either. And we saw how that went. So no, just don't worry about that. Bama's fine. Quinn Ewers announced today that he's coming back, or it was announced if he didn't announce it. It was announced that he's coming back for 2024, which that opens eyes about Arch Manning. What's Arch Manning going to do? Is he going to transfer? Is he going to hit the portal? That's going to be interesting. Georgia almost completely healthy now. Minus a couple of players, buddy. I'm sorry, Georgia's kind of through the roof right now. Go Dogs. Bama's is too. And I don't think Georgia fans look at that game and go, oh my God, we're going to lose. Oh shit, we're going to lose. I don't think they look at that. I just think Georgia looks at Bama and they go, we wanted to play those guys before. Not so sure we want to play those guys now. Because here's the bad thing, John, is depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks, Georgia's in that spot where they could be undefeated and then lose one game and they're out. Whereas Bama got to lose a game and they're in. So a lot of times, especially in college football, it's more about when you lose more than it is who you lose to. So that's what sucks for Georgia. Bama had the same thing happen in 2018. They almost lost that SEC championship to Georgia before Jalen replaced Tua. It was very questionable as to whether or not Bama would have stayed in the playoff if they had lost that game. And then, of course, in 2017, you had the Iron Bowl that didn't matter. Hey, you can't be anything Georgia would do what they did to Ole Miss. Yeah, no way Georgia does what to Alabama what they did to Ole Miss or South Carolina or Kentucky or anything like that. Ole Miss, by the way, is a terrible matchup for Georgia. Just a terrible matchup because Ole Miss likes to run the ball. I get it with Lane Kiffin and whatnot, but it's still just a bad matchup. It comes down to recruiting. Ole Miss just doesn't have the players. That's what Lane Kiffin said, and he's right. That's not a knock on his team. Just Ole Miss don't have the players that Georgia has or Alabama has. That's why they struggle trying to win those big games. Let's see. I love these comments. When I ask us Arch Manning may transfer. Yeah, I don't see Arch transferring to Alabama. I think the room's too crowded. Also, I mean, Milrow's going to start next year, right? Do you really see anybody other than Milrow starting next year? Why? Like, is Sayin going to come in and really be that guy? Ty Simpson's going to hit the portal in the offseason. That's a given. Buckner's going to go sell insurance. So I think it's going to be Milrow with Sayin as the backup. Maybe I always pronounce his name wrong. Lonergan, the baseball kid, plays baseball and football. He was the fourth string, but had been moving up the depth chart some. And a lot of people say in practice he looks the best as far as the backups go. Yeah, they want to keep Bama out. I don't really like the conspiracy theory stuff. I don't know. Just don't. And I don't because in 2017, they put Bama in over Ohio State. 2-loss Big Ten champion Ohio State, 1-loss non-division winning Alabama, and they put Bama in over the Buckeyes. So I don't know. I don't think there's this huge like thing against Alabama. Just like I don't think there's this huge thing for Alabama either that these Tennessee fans are convinced of. Said, but at least someone said between USC and Georgia hasn't. Yeah, that's correct. Georgia hasn't seen a defense like this. Although with Bowers and McConkey, I mean that is solid. And Georgia's run game too. Saber entirely. So yeah, I disagree there, Carrito. I don't think Lane Kiffin gets the Bama job. Bama goes after Dan Lanning. Is the first call. Lane's not going to A&M. I don't think Tennessee beats Georgia. Georgia's too physical. Yeah, Simpson's definitely transferring. I agree with you there. So, all right, college football rankings one last time here. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight. What a great crew. 130 of you on here right now. Tons of comments and whatnot. Truly appreciate it. Do Mick and I both a favor. Help us out here. Make sure you like and subscribe on this page. We really appreciate that. And also click the bell. It tells you when we go live. And just like tonight, where the show's a little bit later than what it is on a normal week, kind of gives you a heads up when we're dropping content and whatnot. Also on social media, there's my handle. It's on the screen there. This chat is real. Broadcaster Mick is for Mick Gillispie. So make sure you check him out also. Let's see. What's James saying? And Georgia fans spout out Bama wants none of the dogs. Bama wants every part of the dogs. Bama wants the dogs and their mom and their puppies and the rest of the litter. Bama wants the dogs. All right. Bama wants the dogs. I can tell you that now. The one thing I do love as well is Georgia being a favorite. There's nothing better than Nick Saban being an underdog. God, that is great. Like, if the line's moving, which some of you have said it is, opened at 4, now it's down to 1, I need all of you to go bet Georgia, because you gotta spend the money and you gotta drive the line back up to piss off Nick Saban. Chess, not checkers. Like Terrion said, it's Monopoly. I need you guys moving the line and going out and taking Georgia so that Bama remains the underdog. Don't be shifting it, okay? You need Nick Saban and the team even more pissed off than normal. All right, here it is one last time. So top 8, Georgia, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. If it ended today, that's what it would look like. Washington still 5, Oregon, Texas, and Bama still 6 through 8. Biggest surprise of the night, Missouri in at number 9. Louisville cracks the top 10. They will likely have a date with Florida State for the ACC championship, which could be a potential upset if the Noles don't slip to the Gators first. Oregon State, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and LSU. That's 11 through 15. Iowa 16. Arizona has moved its way to 17. Tennessee 18. Notre Dame 19. North Carolina in at 20. The final 5, starting with 21, is Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State after their embarrassing loss to Central Florida and Gus Malzahn. Tulane at 24, and Kansas holds on at the number 25 position, even though they lost at home to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So big matchups this weekend. Texas goes on the road to Iowa State. Hopefully some voodoo going on in Ames. And then what else we got? Washington's going to lose to Oregon State this weekend. And I think that's about it. Next week with rivalry week, some more potential upsets. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the Nick Saban press conference after practice that comes on usually around 6 p.m. So expect at least tomorrow night, we'll carry that press conference live, do some reactions, and kind of get set, final little tune up there before Saturday with Bama and Chattanooga at 11 a.m. And of course, we'll have the tailgate show on Friday night, the original Friday night. Make sure you join us here on the Bama Tailgate channel for that 2 hours of fun. Plus, we'll have a little bit of pre-show, a little bit of post-show, chat with you guys. It's always fun. We always appreciate hanging out with you guys and you guys joining us. So, any last things here? Could Texas and Bama both get in? Possibly. Yep. I could see that. And Dodge, are you? Yeah. All right. That's it, guys. Appreciate you hanging out. Everybody have a great Tuesday night. We'll talk to you tomorrow again, 6 p.m. Saban's press conference. Enjoy your evening. Roll Tide.